Hello, welcome to my little cozy corner here. My name is Brittany and I live in Whitehorse, Yukon of Northwest Canada with my husband and 2 kids, our cat Heidi, and that's us. Here we are. Today is a very cold day. It is, gosh, I think this morning it was even as cold as -43. It was misty outside and still we have what we call ice fog in the air, and the sun has finally reached sort of its peak for the day, and I decided maybe today would be a good day to just finally start doing this thing called a podcast, vlogcast, whichever we want to call it. So yeah, if you know me, then you'll know that I am a hand-dyed fiber artist. I'm a spinner, knitter, crocheter, hopefully one day weaver, hopefully one day sewist. Sort of once you fall down the rabbit hole of making things, you just want to make everything, especially if you can make it yourself. I am drinking black coffee, so if you are a black coffee lover, tell me down below. I became a black coffee lover when I was living in the UK many years ago and living off of a very small budget, and milk was one of the things that just had to go so I could eat nutritious foods. But anyways, here we are. I think like anybody, when you first start something out like this, you're a little more timid, shy, uncertain, and yeah, we're just sitting in my bedroom. Right behind me I have my cabinet with my stash. Beside me I have a few other things I'd like to show you guys. If you're interested, please stick around. I'd love to show you what I'm working on. Currently I'm actually knitting a hat, which is knit out of Handspun that my friend Melissa spun, and she gifted me. A few months ago I went to visit her on the lower mainland of Vancouver. We went to the island and we had a weekend of a lot of spinning and knitting and chatting, and it was actually the first time we ever met in person, so it's a really special yarn, and I will show you this. It's really beautiful. It's Dorset and Alpaca. The Dorset is from here in Canada, as is the Alpaca. And I'm just knitting a simple hat, 2x2 ribbed hat with a cable that goes up. The pattern is free on Ravelry, called Jason's Cashmere Hat. So Melissa specifically spun this yarn for that hat, so I decided to just knit this hat. I started last night and I'm loving it. I haven't done cables in a while, so they're simple cables, nothing complex. I love the complex, but this is a nice, not necessarily pellet cleanser, but just maybe project cleanser. I've had a lot of slower projects on the go, and this one, maybe it's just self-gratifying to have something done, you know, quicker. So that's what I'm working on. But before I get on to the other things that I'm working on, I would love to show you some things that I've completed, and most recently would be actually these socks. So I did an exclusive sock set, not with the yellow, just the brown, the white, and this foresty green. I did this kit exclusively for a little shop in Victoria, in British Columbia, for her sock club. And then the pattern is the Winter Solstice Socks by Autumn Poppy Designs. She's like my lovely friend Paula. So she designed the socks, and it was an MCAL that was just, I think it just finished this week. So I finished these pretty quickly. I did them 2 at a time and 64 stitch count cast on. And a lovely little bit of lace, some baubles, color work, and yeah, they're super pretty. But before I knit these, I also wanted to showcase the kit in some mittens. So hang on here, I'll just put them on. These are the, I think they're pronounced Trundheim Mittens, and I forget the designer, but I'll link it below. So here we are. They feature a really nice little row of houses, Latvian braids, that's right here, this, which by the way is very easy to do, I swear. It's just 3 rows of purling, colorwork purling with your yarn held in the front, and then some lovely, what I would think is snowflakes, and then the insides just cute little flowers and the thumbs. So those are super fun. This is knit in my BFL 2-ply fingering weight yarn, which I absolutely adore. I really, really do. And they are non-superwash, untreated yarns, so no nylon. I've completely switched all of my yarn bases to plastic free. Conscious decision that I want to make, but doesn't necessarily mean I don't knit with nylon or superwash yarns. I just it's cold here, come on, -41 today. I did not reinforce the heel on my socks or the toes or underneath the ball or the foot, but what I did do was an eye of partridge heel, which is written in the pattern, and I go down a needle size to do the heels so that the gauge is just tighter and fabric just is tight. So those were fun, and I was so glad to use up the whole sock set, or the little set that it was a sock set. Anyways, rambling because you know you're all nervous. And I'm just realizing right now I probably maybe should have started out with what I'm wearing, because you're probably looking at this and you may already know, but it's the Wool and Honey sweater by Andrea Mowry, and this is my most worn sweater. It is very boxy. I did not do a gauge swatch. I just find I tend to always hit gauge when I don't know what the magic is. I just do. And I knit, gosh, I don't even remember what size I knit. But I usually am like a size large to extra large at the moment. I fluctuate. Who cares? And it's my most worn sweater. I knit it with a singles yarn that is spun at McAusland Woolen Mills, dyed by a Canadian dyer. And yeah, I love it. Not extremely full length sleeves, but it is a sweater pattern that does eat up yarn because of the garter stitching. But yeah, so great. This yarn is wonderful. It's so warm and drapey. Again, just most worn sweater I own because it just is comfortable. You don't feel like anything's really tight and hugging you. So yeah, that's that. I also launched a New Year's hand-dyed kit and a kit for spinners, and so I forgot my son's hat, but anyways, I will show you the one that I spun. So this hat, I spun the yarn with the kit that I created, and the pattern is called the Rain Toque by Kraken Made on Instagram, Crafting Kraken Made. And this is supposed to be, yeah, it's supposed to resemble a crown, and then there's these beads, which are super fun. It's a double brim, and it's DK weight, so I spun the yarn at about 14 wraps per inch or so, and did the double brim. I could have probably knit the crown a little longer, but it fit well. My hair is always down because I get headaches when I put it up. And a Yukon fur pom-pom, which is ethically harvested, meaning the animal is ethically treated and honorably handled, and most of the times trapped by indigenous people here in the Yukon. So it is a way of living here in the Yukon to hunt our wildlife here. Yeah, that's my hat. I love this toque so much. I've knit 3 of them. So it's called the Rain Toque, R-E-I-G-N. Again, double brim, which is, she describes it a 1x2 rib. But yeah, looking at it, you're looking at the knit stitches, it's a 1x2, and then the in between is the purl stitches, which maybe explaining that doesn't make sense unless you want to see it. But super warm hat. This blend that I created, there's like 7 or 9 different fibers. The majority sourced here in Canada, and also fleeces that I've processed. So from a wonderful friend, Sierra from Crocus Country Shepherdess, she had these 2 lambs that were BFL Icelandic cross, and they were the cutest. She showed me a picture. They're in this little trough thing, and they're really patchy with like lots of white and then black spots. So like picture of milking cow. Super, super cute. And she said that they were wethers and that their fleeces would be a bit cheaper, but they were interesting, and she would love to see what the fiber is like. So I received both fleeces that were like almost 2.5 pounds, which is pretty big for a lamb's fleece of that blend, which was actually, BFL Gotland Icelandic. So I think probably 50% Icelandic, and then whatever the percentages would have been for the BFL and Gotland. So just fascinating fleece, and I really, really loved working with it. I really, really did. So I shared it with all of my wonderful customers, followers, friends, whatever. I love to call you all friends, really, but yeah, so I used some of that. There's some alpaca, Corriedale, possibly merino. I can't quite remember all of it. Navajo churro from Lone Sequoia Ranch. Leanna is wonderful, and she has a very old heritage breed on her land that she keeps breeding because she loves it. And they are super fun fibers to spin. So yeah, if you want to check out the rain toque, please do. I know Eden would absolutely love to see more rain toques out there, because we all should wear our crowns with pride. Anyways, yeah, so that's that. And then I do have 2 sweaters I'd love to show you. The first one was a test knit for the Blue Bird Box Anna. You can find her podcast on YouTube as well. So she's called the Blue Bird Box. She actually does, I think, research about birds. So like there's a box where she goes and looks at the birds, puts a tag on them, records what the breed, or is it the breed, or what bird it is. So anyways, she released a pattern for her kids that was, I think it was called the maybe Sunshine Pullover, I can't remember, but this one she ended up naming it's all wrinkly, sorry, the Moody Hue Pullover. And as you can see, it's like rainbowed, and this is all knit in my hand dyed yarn. So the colored is my hand dyed yarn, and the white is just bare yarn. I knit the size 5 or size 6. I had mostly had gauge. I think my row gauge was a little bit more, but otherwise this thing fits like a dream. And guys, look at the cuffs. So yeah, color work in the sleeves. I definitely love this, and because of how much I love this, I applied it in my other sweater that I knit just after this. Actually, I was knitting them side by side, but this one took priority. So yeah, she did a short row shaping, the neck, lower the back as well. Yeah, this is knit in a Peruvian Highland wool, a yarn base that I did try dyeing. I absolutely loved it, but I really wanted to focus on not importing yarns and just finding yarns to dye that were sourced in Canada. So the yarns that I do dye are sourced in Canada, spun in Canada, but imported. So I'm doing a little bit better at some, low mileage wool. And yeah, being able to support a company in Canada as well. So the Moody Hue, I'm wondering if there's anything else I want to say about this. Oh, there was a matching hat as well. Yeah, and then apart from that, there's the child size one too. So Anna is really, really wonderful to test for if you ever want to test for a designer who's very patient, who actually writes and describes things very well, in my opinion, and offers some interesting techniques and education, I think, within the pattern. She's really wonderful to test knit for, or just knit her patterns. Yeah, I'm actually test knitting another one of her sweaters. I'll be able to show you. And finally, my last finished object was this, the Lunenburg Pullover. This was a really fun color work. I will bring it up closer so you can see pearl bumps in the color work. And it's just a play in color. It reminds me a lot of Jamieson Shetland and Marie Wallen's patterns, which I still have yet to knit. I have one on the needles, but I just haven't been getting to it. Maybe it's just not for now, you know? And I knit for the 44-inch bust. I like a lot of positive ease. I want to feel comfortable in my sweaters. And I want to feel warm in my sweaters. So this is knit out of a very beloved yarn called Nutiden by, I think it's pronounced Mohair or something. But everyone knows the yarn is Nutiden. And it is an unspun, see if I can find some, an unspun yarn, pencil roving. So when yarn is going to be, I believe, woolen spun, it gets drafted out. And the fibers are sort of every which way, but then at least drafted out to be a certain micron. Or in this case, it is a roving, so it's not round, it's fairly flat. But this is 2 strands. And this is almost the color. It was a lucky charm, basically the mill end. And so there's some different colors in there, but pretty close to the color of the sweater. Very fuzzy, lovely halo actually, very warm. And yeah, the Lunenburg Pullover, I will link below the designer. I forget the name. It's, you know, when you're on the spot, you just forget things. But I'll link it below so you can go check it out. The Lunenburg Pullover, just my dream. The pattern does not call for the color work in the sleeves, but I knew I was going to run out of this to finish the body. So when I knit my sweaters, I always knit the sleeves first and then the body. And the reason for that is because once you add in the stitches for the armpit, it can steal away length from the body. And I don't have a very long torso, but I think I usually knit the body about 12 to 14 inches. That's including the ribbing. I can't remember. You know those things that you just keep repeating to yourself over and over and you're like, I'll never forget now. I always forget. Same thing with my length of sleeves. So I always go measure one of my current sweaters and know what length I'm going to knit my sleeves. But anyways, the Lunenburg Pullover is absolutely a stunning sweater to work on. You increase quite rapidly in the yoke. And then I think I knit for, well, as you can see here, several inches before splitting for sleeves. Yeah. With Nutiden, I find I have to knit, go down a few needle sizes for the ribbing. Otherwise it really stretches out. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful pattern. Yeah, so some things that I'm working on. I'll only show a few things because I know that it can get repetitive or overwhelming, maybe. And I don't know if I've been talking too fast for you all, so maybe I could take just a little bit of an interlude to sip on some coffee and talk a bit about what else our family does. So my husband and I are co-owners of a company called Vote Homes. We build spec homes for people here in the Yukon. There's a massive housing shortage here because I think in the last 10 or 15 years we've had a I think it's something like a 10% increase in population, or might even be more than that, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it actually is a lot. So our company's been doing really well, and we've sold one house recently and another one is coming up on the market soon. So that's really exciting. So my husband John gets to go every day and work out in the freezing cold. Thankfully today he's not outside in the really, really cold. So that's the other thing that as a family we do. And then again, I am the dyer behind Crux Fibres. I don't think I mentioned that. Crux Fibres is my business, and I've been in business for going on 2.5 years, and it's been really successful and uplifting, encouraging, overwhelming. Sometimes I hate it, sometimes I love it. I think with any small business, you know, you have your ups and downs and things, but I called my business Crux because it's a reference to my years in the past of rock climbing. And Crux just means a certain point of, a particular point of difficulty. So I've always been really into just working hard at something, doing it better, moving up. And in a rock climb, the crux is the hardest point of which you have to climb to get to the end. So I flashed this yarn because I was going to show you some of my hand-dyed yarn. So that's Crux Fibres, and I'm doing a shop update, little selfish plug here, on January 19th, which is also my birthday. And I'll have a selection of tonal colorways, which you'll be able to find all throughout the year. I can't wait to launch this. I'm so excited. The other thing, I will be having a glass blowing studio that I've worked with for the last few years. Create a glass blown like notions bowl. And if you are a if you love to spin with spindles, but with supported spindles, and you need a bowl, these are really good for that, I believe. I tried spinning some in it, and it worked really lovely. So, yeah. Here we are with some works in progress, and I am using my hand-dyed silk mohair held with some more Nutiden. And this is, I won't show you it too much, but this is the Legacy Pullover with more color work by Anna from the Bluebird box. So I'm doing this test knit. I'm currently on the sleeves, and for the very first time I am knitting 2 sleeves at a time. So like I said, I like to knit my sleeves first and then do the body. So I'm almost complete with the decreases for this arm. I think I am. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 3 more decreases to do. And this has been a really fun project to work on. Anna's chart here that she has for this sweater is really, really, really lovely. And the neckline is also super fun. I think I did something similar like this in the... It's coming. Everyone's knitting it. I can't remember what. Whatever. Anyways, so I'm test knitting that. I don't want to show you it too much because Anna doesn't want to show it off too much, but maybe I'll come close to show you the colors. So this is Raw from Nutiden, and this was, I forget what the orange one was called, but it was representative of fire. And then the lighter color is called Shushbanaya, and I've knit a sweater out of that. And maybe one of these podcasts, if I do it again, I'll wear it. So we shall see. I'm also knitting. Look away if you were doing the Cozy Up Knits MCal. I believe it's a stole. So here we have it. Oh, it's gonna be kind of see-through, hey? Anyways, it's got this really fun waved, let's see if I can get some better lighting, waved ribbing. It was really fun. And then you have these other little waves with your contrasting colors. I love low contrast, so I chose some like low contrast to each other colors just in case I ran out of anything. But I am using the Trillium base. The main color here is called copper. This is the Trillium base from Les Belles Bouclettes in, oh, I forget where they live. Quebec, maybe? I don't know. So their Trillium base, I believe, is 70% silk and 30% wool. It's a 2-ply. It's fairly lightweight, but I know that it blooms. And it's called copper. So it's pretty a really nice coppery cognac brown. And it's shiny. So I think the Cozy Up girls probably used a superwashed yarn with more than 2 plies, but given that I know they were going to do lace, I know that 2-ply opens up really nice in lace, and this was in my stash, and it looked like a good option for it, and I thought it would be a really nice way to showcase this yarn. So, oh, there you go, some nice lighting there. So yeah, that's super, super fun. I hopefully will have Clue 1 finished before Saturday. The contrast colors I'm using are the Pearl Soho Linen Quill. I used these 2 colors in a half and half wrap, and these are my leftovers, so I got more than enough. And then I don't know what I'll do with the rest of it, but I'll figure out something. That's the great thing about having a stash, is when you need something, you might be able to find it. Lastly, things that I'm working on are some socks, some poor socks. I have another pair of socks that I'm still working on. But for last year I knit so many socks and sweaters. I was insane last year with how much I knit. I don't know how I did it. But I do have an interesting and unique style of knitting. It's quite quick. So I have one sock that's finished. This is in my hand-dyed yarn. I was doing some self-striping on my BFL base because I always see self-striping with, you know, traditional kind of sock yarn, but I wanted like a really woolly sock with no nylon and self-striping yarn that's gonna shrink if you put it in the washing machine. But I held a strand of mohair in the heels and the toes, but this is not kid silk mohair, like brushed. It is a mohair that is from Les Belles Bouclettes, who I've already mentioned. They're lace, I think it's called Butterfly Kisses, and I have a giant cone of it. So on a shop update that I've been doing of a self-striping sock yarn with Progress Keeper, I've been including the main skein of the self-striping with the contrast color and then a little mini skein of that mohair to hold double. So you get 100% Canadian mohair and the hand-dyed yarn by me. So I still have to cast on and finish this one. So that's like a UFO. And then I've been working on this sock forever. This is from the 52 weeks of socks. And somebody else was knitting that. I think it was Kat from Heather and Hops who was knitting it. And I was like, I want to knit that. I want to knit that so bad. I've also knit the morning coffee socks, which is a super fun sock to knit. No, that's not it. I may have to just link it down below if I'm taking too long to find it here. I thought it was at the beginning of the book. A simple stitch pattern that's, oh, here we go. Intersections. Oh, I should have known that. So intersections here. Right there. So I'm knitting that sock, and I'm using a yarn that I absolutely adore. It's the, oh goodness, do I have the tag? Yes, by Garthenor Organic. I used to live in South Wales, so to have a sock yarn be called Snowdonia sock. Snowdonia is the north of Wales, and I have climbed that mountain. And this is a Hebridean wool. I believe it's a dual coat wool, meaning there's some kemp in the fiber. So there's quite a halo there. There you go, there's quite a halo there. And so the kemp just agitates out. So it might feel itchy to begin with, but it's not. So it's supposed to be pretty strong. It's a 4-ply fingering. So they say it's a 4-ply, but I believe what they've done is they've spun two plies together and then spun those two together. So it's not 4 singles spun together, it's 2 singles together, 2 singles together, and then spun together. And so the Hebridean is grown in South Wales and the Scottish Highlands, scoured and spun in Yorkshire, and hand finished in West Wales. So these come in 50-gram skeins at 200 meters or 219 yards. Certified organic, and I love this company. I did discover them while I was living over there, but I wasn't really as in love with my knitting back then as I am now. So yeah, these socks hopefully I'll have finished at some point. Oh, I am holding my own hand-dyed silk mohair in the heels. That was my first time testing out what it was like to hold other fibers in the heels. This is in my little bag from Her Leather Co. It's just really lovely. I love going for walks with the kids and then just holding this, or sitting in the car and hanging it off of something, or that's a really nice bag. And then there's the buttons, so they come down. Yeah. So I think that was all that I really wanted to show you. I have been working on some spinning, not in the last maybe month or so. I did do an Instagram live not too long ago to talk about spinning, and while we were talking about spinning, I was filling up this bobbin here, which is the Tansy twins, that the fleece that I spoke about at the beginning of this podcast with the BFL Gotland Icelandic blend. So because their fleeces were black and white, when I received them I could separate the locks. So that's what I did. I separated the locks into white tones, gray tones, and black tones. And looking at the white, I was thinking, okay, it's not going to be perfectly white, and it wasn't. So it is like a very light gray, because it was impossible to get out all of the little fine gray fibers. And so I decided I wanted to spin it with some color. I didn't want to dye it. I didn't want to dye the locks and then spin, or spin and then dye. I wanted to do what I absolutely love, which is create heathered yarns. And so the Tansy Twins fleeces I blended with some hand-dyed silk and mohair from Fairy Tale Wool. I think they're in BC, Fairy Tale Wool on Etsy. So I like to get hand-dyed fibers from her. I don't have time to dye fiber as well. I could. I just have so many other things I want to do, and the yarn takes up more time than the fiber does. So this has been spinning up really lovely. It's very airy. I chose some purple, some burgundy, gold, and like a muted copper tone, or maybe sand color. There we go, a sand color. So I'm going to stop faffing around and show you. Just trying to find a nice spot. So here's a nice good chunk of the color that's in there. So I've been spinning at Woolen at about 40 wraps per inch singles. So it's pretty fine. And then I'm going to do a 3-ply. I'm kind of obsessed with 3-plies lately. So it's pretty thin. Not too bad. And because of the Icelandic in it, it's got some nice halo. Yeah. It's not like next to skin merino. I really love it. If you know BFL has a really nice sheen. So if you look at this yellow here, it's really shiny. Not really, but like it's got a nice luster to it. And so the Tansy twins have that characteristic of the BFL. And then the Gotland in it, they have, which is like the silky feeling to it. Just makes it feel really sleek. And so BFL and the Gotland are more on the like medium wools. And then the Icelandic, of course, is like coarser and has the fell, the long fibers. So I've been really enjoying spinning that. And I also subscribed to Long Way Homestead, or I did a 12-month subscription with Long Way Homestead, and I was spinning up their fibers, and I can show you the Targhee. So I'm going to do this one a 3-ply as well. The Targhee is really fun to spin. It's much like, if you are into spinning, it's much like spinning Rambouillet, because they both have the same, well, Rambouillet has its bloodlines, and Targhee has the Rambouillet bloodline as well. And I do have a few things behind me I could show you, and a few acquisitions. So, hop and a skip, right? So these were my other hand spun yarns. So this here was fiber that I spun from Lindsay from Artifacts of Appreciation. I realize I'm looking this way, not that way. But anyways, we'll deal with that next time. And then this was a bat called Alfie that I spun, that I blended and spun. There's actually two. There's a bat and a roving in my shop right now. This is really lovely. It has a Jacob Shetland, trying to remember, some merino, some silk, probably alpaca, and Corriedale, I think. Can't remember, but I called it Alfie because Alfie was the sheep at Leanna's farm that was basically some sheep hopped a fence and made a baby that wasn't supposed to be made. And Alfie is like, yeah, a good one. A favorite sheep on the farm, apparently. And the only acquisitions I'd like to show you is a new yarn base I discovered recently. While I'm trying to not be weird, I'm being weird. Anyways, I did say to my followers on Instagram that I say cheesy things. So there I am, saying cheesy things. Toque Wool. Toque Wool by TTT. I don't know. Anyways, I wanted their sock base. I don't remember why. I think it's because of the plies. I didn't want to knit socks with, well, I have a yarn base that I knit that's 2-ply, but I wanted to try this sock base. So it's 80% finished wool, 20% polyamide, which is nylon. And I chose the colors Leto, L-E-H-T-O, and I chose Valo, so like these, it's a green, and this is like a green tone yellow. I chose Runo, it's like a natural gray with some little bits of brown, so that's those ones. And sorry about all the lighting. And then this was Tiny, maybe, or Tinny, a navy. I love navy. There you go. So yeah, I chose these, and at some point I will have projects for these. And then just hiding over here with some more stash. But yeah, I don't have a massive stash. I just have what's in this cabinet. And the rule of thumb in my house is if it fits in the cabinet, then great. But if it doesn't fit in the cabinet, it's not allowed in the house. That's just sort of a boundary, I guess, I placed. It used to just be those 2 shelves. And then I found a place for the sweaters. And then those 2 shelves filled up. But that's okay, right? So, here we are. If you do have any questions, please drop them below. I'd love to answer them. Or tell me where you're from. Tell me if you've ever been to the Yukon and what your favorite thing was about visiting here. There's a few people who I know here who do podcasts, and Heather is... she's the Northward Knitter on YouTube. She's done a few episodes. And then my lovely friend Loretta and her daughter Natalia are the Knitting My Way Home podcast. And they haven't podcast for a while, and they have good reasons. But I think they'll be back eventually. So yeah. Those are some podcasters in the Yukon. There's lots of interesting things here. I think everyone knows that I'm really proud of being a Yukoner. Was born and raised here. And my family is somewhat known in the community because my dad is a political cartoonist, and he used to work at the Yukon News here. And he still does all of the cartoons. He's a clever man. And I have 3 brothers. 2 of them live here and 1 lives south. Yeah, my kids' names are Calvin and Sybil. Calvin is 5 years old. Sybil is 3. And, oh, they keep me on my toes. They're currently in the other room. I gave them some screen time so that I could see if I could squeeze a podcast in, which here we are. And just thinking about it, I'm feeling super nervous about publishing, but I don't know. I just thought I wanted to show things that I'm working on, things that I'm passionate about, maybe share things that I've learned, maybe share things I'd love others to learn as well. I started out dyeing yarn, almost 2.5 years ago. And I had never knew anything about hand-dyed yarn until I was on maternity leave with my daughter. I think it's a fairly common story for yarn dyers to talk about the start of their business being during maternity leave. So, I don't know, I think I was just on Instagram looking up knitting stuff. I was knitting a lot of things for the kids, and I came across a few Canadian dyers, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, and I was chatting with one of them, and I didn't quite know the boundaries at the time about or the respect I guess you should have for some people. You can't just contact them and say, hey, I want to dye yarn. Can you tell me everything you know? So I didn't know, and unfortunately I was kind of one of those people at the time who did ask, so grace is free. So anyways, my friend so graciously gave me a few tips, and I went searching, and I decided I was going to do all the research myself and figure things out myself by YouTube, by trial and error. And what started out to just be a sort of like a small income raiser for being on mat leave, which it doesn't pay a whole lot, it turned into a business that's thriving quite well, and growing at a pace that I'm comfortable with. I don't like to be shocked by some things too drastically, so I like a steady growth and some connection with people. So I really care about connecting with individuals wherever they're at. So over on my page on Instagram, all are welcome, and I don't tolerate any racism and hate. I just want everyone to feel welcome and included. So yeah. Here we are. I'd love to know what you guys are working on, what you're knitting, what you're crocheting, what you're weaving, what you're spinning, whichever. I know that we're not all knitters. So I will do my best not to always refer to knitting. I do have a scrappy blanket on the needles that I've been working on. It's actually gotten quite big. I didn't even show you that. My friend Hand Knit by Cam started one, and I joined her, and it's just been growing and growing, and I just sort of work on it when I feel like it. And I using a 3.5mm crochet hook that was hand carved by my friend Rue of Hand Carved Hooks, and she made a sister hook too. I absolutely love it. Here they are. They are carved and burned into some, like this one has a raven. It's just, I love it. And some of my favorite flowers. And it's supposed to look like landscape and trees. This is the first one. This is the one I'm using, which has King's Throne, which is my favorite mountain. A mountain that my husband and I hiked up, where I was hoping he'd ask me out on a date, but he didn't. He eventually did, obviously. Anyways, probably just gonna mumble on if I keep going. So, and you've been here long enough with me. So thank you for joining me. Again, tell me down below where you're from, what you're working on. If you have any questions about life here, wonderful. I'll try to get some footage to share at the end so that you can see some life in -40 and north of 60, just below the Arctic Circle. Why do we live here? Because we survive. Good, cheesy things. Anyways, love you all. Have a wonderful day. Bye. That's it, guys. Yay! Winter Wonderland. We lost him. Let's go find him. Hurrah! This way, buddy.